just, did what I thought was best.
I'm trying hard to. You almost destroyed me, but I refuse to let you destroy me. I will carry on.
Just where I hate you, motherfucker! I hate you!
Case 1. Larry Nassar. The Larry Nassar case has been one of the most widely publicized scandals in recent history, as it revealed the immense scope of abuse within elite sports institutions. Nassar, a former physician for USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University, sexually abused hundreds of young athletes over the course of decades, manipulating the trust placed in him for his own sickening purposes. His case serves as an example of how an individual in a position of power can exploit vulnerable young people for years without detection. The abuse began as early as the 1990s, and it wasn't until 2016 that the first public allegations surfaced.
Father, have a chance to say something.
Go ahead, sir.
You son.
In a courtroom, we don't use profanity, but if you have some words that you would like to say, I would like to give you the opportunity to say them.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
I have
Would
a
you
feeling.
do that?
That is not how
Yes or
our.
no?
No, sir, I can't.
Would you
do
give me
that.
1 minute?
You know that I can't do that. That's not how our legal system
Well, I'm gonna have
works.
to stop.
Stay down. Press Morgan. I'll stay down. Get over there, Matthew. Hurry up.
I want that stuff.
Behind your back.
Give me 1 minute with that. What if this happened to you guys?
Not behave like that. No one can behave like this. I want to make sure it's crystal clear. I'm sure Judge
You haven't lived through it, lady.
You cannot behave like
Nassar gained widespread trust in the gymnastics community because of his expertise and caring demeanor. This trust was used to lure young athletes into compromising positions, where he sexually abused them under the guise of medical treatment. His status as a trusted physician allowed him to manipulate both the victims and their families, convincing them that his actions were necessary for their health. The systemic failure to uncover these crimes earlier is a heartbreaking reminder of how institutions can overlook abuse when it involves someone in a position of authority. Nassar's total lack of remorse for the pain he caused was evident in his cold demeanor during court proceedings. Even after being confronted with hundreds of emotional impact statements, Nassar continued to deny the full extent of his crimes and minimize the gravity of his actions.
I find myself unfamiliar, yet disturbing unfamiliar territory today as we appear here in your court. I will do my very best to remain ethical, politically correct, as I address this court, the defendant, his counsel, in this extremely emotionally charged issue.
In 2016, the first public allegations against Nassar came to light, thanks to the courage of Rachel Den Hollander, a former gymnast who spoke out about her abuse. Den Hollander's testimony led other survivors to come forward, and by 2018, over 300 women had accused Nassar of sexual abuse. These brave women shared their stories of manipulation, coercion, and exploitation, some of which began when they were as young as 6 years old. Their testimony exposed the full scale of Nassar's abuse, and it became clear that his actions spanned nearly 2 decades. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Nassar continued to deny the seriousness of his crimes.
Inmate 21504-040 for your eternal life. As a law enforcement correctional professional for over 32 years, I speak for myself and my personal feelings that you do not deserve to be educated regarding your future. You do not deserve to be educated on the how-tos. How to fly a kite to a correctional officer to ask for a doctor. How to fly a kite to ask how to fill out an inmate form. How to fly a kite to ask how you use the inmate telephone system. You do not deserve the wins. When will those blue clothes you have on your back be washed? When will those whites that are limited in your possession be laundered? When will your blankets be laundered? You do not deserve that. The wares within those facilities and the watch out fors. You do not deserve to be educated in that. As you are forever escorted from wall to wall. Because as we have all seen and you have proven, you did not care to extend that courtesy or compassion to anyone. Yet you simply benefited from your pathetic, narcissistic, psychopathic agenda. However, I will educate you on some prison argots.
When Nassar pled guilty to 7 counts of sexual assault in 2018, he was sentenced to 40 to 125 years in prison. More than 150 survivors spoke at his sentencing hearing, sharing the devastating emotional and physical toll his abuse had taken on their lives. The emotional weight of these statements was felt throughout the courtroom and sparked widespread public support for the victims. However, throughout the sentencing, Nassar showed little remorse. His cold and indifferent response to the pain he had caused reflected a man who had yet to truly understand the magnitude of his actions.
Who was the doctor that USAG sent to keep us healthy and help us get through? The doctor that was our abuser. The doctor that is a child molester. Nobody was even concerned whether or not we were being sexually abused. I was not protected, and neither were my teammates. Larry Nassar is accountable. USA Gymnastics is accountable. The U.S. Olympic Committee is accountable.
I am here to face you, Larry, so you can see I've regained my strength, that I'm no longer a victim, I'm a survivor. Your abuse started 30 years ago, but that's just the first reported incident we know of. If over these many years just one adult listened and had the courage and character to act, this tragedy could have been avoided. For this sport to go on, we need to demand real change, and we need to be willing to fight for it. It's clear now that if we leave it up to these organizations, history is likely to repeat itself.
This sentence will send a message about how seriously abuse will be taken. So I ask, how much is a little girl worth? Victims were silenced, intimidated, repeatedly told it was medical treatment, and even forced to go back for continued sexual assault. When I came forward in 2016, I brought an entire file of evidence with me, and the MSU PD handled it beautifully. But MSU officials were a different story. Because the response of Dean William Strample was to send an email to Larry that day and tell him, quote, "Good luck, I am on your side." What we had to go through for our voices to be heard because of the responses of the adults in authority has greatly compounded the damage we suffer.
Despite the emotional devastation caused by Nassar's actions, many survivors felt some sense of closure after the sentence was handed down. Nassar's actions had impacted not just his victims, but their families and entire communities. By sentencing Nassar to life in prison, The court sent a strong message about the consequences of abuse within elite institutions. This case has prompted calls for more stringent measures in sports organizations to ensure that such abuse never happens again.
Would you like to withdraw your plea?
No, Your Honor.
Because you are guilty, aren't you? Are you guilty, sir?
I said my plea, exactly.
As much as it was my honor and privilege to hear the sister survivors, it is my honor and privilege to sentence you. Because, sir, you do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again. You have done nothing to control those urges, and anywhere you walk, destruction will occur. I find that you don't get it, that you're a danger. You remain a danger. I am a judge who believes in life and rehabilitation when rehabilitation is possible. I have many defendants come back here and show me the great things they've done in their lives after probation, after parole. I don't find that's possible with you. Your decision to assault was precise, calculated, manipulative, devious, despicable. I don't have to add words because your survivors have said all of that. I don't want to repeat it. Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant. I need everyone to be quiet. I still have contempt powers. I told you I'm not nice. Thank you. That's all for the record.
Case 2. Stephen Sanderson. In 2014, Stephen Sanderson, a life sentence inmate at Michigan's Saginaw Correctional Facility, made headlines for a disturbing act of vigilantism. Sanderson murdered his cellmate, Theodore Dyer, a convicted child molester, and claimed that he had taken justice into his own hands. Dyer, who had been convicted of molesting children, became one of the most despised types of criminals in prison. Sanderson, disgusted by Dyer's crimes, admitted to the murder, stating that he felt morally justified in ending Dyer's life. Sanderson had spent years in the criminal justice system, having been convicted of a drug dealer's murder in 1991. His long history of crime and violence led him to develop a sense of anger and distrust toward those who, like Dyer, committed crimes against vulnerable individuals. Sanderson's crime was a result of his personal belief in retribution, as he claimed he had no regret or remorse for killing Dyer.
And then when you were done, you flushed it down the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do that?
Because I'm an idiot. I don't know. Obviously I don't think right. I'm in prison for most of my life, so my thinking isn't really rational. I don't know. I just kind of
thought that was the appropriate thing to do at that time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I know murdering somebody's not a good thing, but I mean, Jesus, man, if the things this guy did, things he said he did, I wouldn't want someone like that on the street again.
So
I do what's necessary. I do what some people won't. I mean, you guys are cops. You arrest people all the time for stuff that you wish you could shoot them in the face. I already know that. I'm not stupid.
Sanderson's total lack of remorse was evident in his courtroom testimony. When questioned about the murder, Sanderson coldly stated that he had zero remorse for what he had done. He even explained that he had planned the murder after learning about Dyer's criminal history, indicating that his actions were premeditated. Sanderson believed he had delivered justice for Dyer's victims, but his actions only raised complex legal and moral questions about vigilantism and punishment in prison.
Since this all happened, it's kind of been, people think I'm some kind of hero. Well, I'm actually not. I just, did what I thought was best.
Case 3. Raymond Frolander. The Raymond Frolander case shocked the nation in 2014 due to the violent confrontation that occurred after Frolander was caught sexually abusing an 11-year-old boy. The boy's father walked in on the scene and immediately attacked Frolander, beating him into unconsciousness. The father's reaction highlighted the intense emotions and instincts of a parent who caught someone violating their child. The case sparked national conversations about justice, parental rights, and how far someone should go to protect their family.
Now, let's talk to the mom. Sal, we're going to call her Sally. She's the mother of the victims. Of course, Sally's not her real name. We're protecting our identity to protect the son's identity as well. Sally, I understand this relationship with Raymond is a little more complicated than the press has been reporting. Tell me about that.
Yes, it is, actually. Raymond was not just a teenager that we just happened to take in. He wasn't a neighbor. He was a full-blown member of this family. My son refers to him as his brother. He's been a part of this family for quite some time, since he was a child.
And so this business of the abuse possibly lasting across 3 years, that seems viable, does it not?
That actually is not true either. What actually happened was Raymond moved away. Right before he moved away, my son just now tells us that something similar had happened before he had moved away. Raymond was gone for 3 years and had just recently come back to Florida.
Frolander, a trusted family friend, had groomed the boy for years, exploiting his position to gain access to the child. Even after being caught and admitting to the abuse, Frolander showed no remorse. His confession, combined with the overwhelming evidence against him, made it clear that his actions had caused long-term harm to the boy and his family.
Briefly to us before pushing the cameras away.
He's going to learn in the next 25 years why I let him live. Now I can't afford to replace y'all's cameras.
Frolander pleaded no contest, thus avoiding a trial, and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. His lack of remorse throughout the process angered many, as it was clear that he had manipulated both the victim and his family for years. While the father's actions were applauded by the public for protecting his son, Frolander's behavior continued to disturb many as it highlighted the cold-hearted nature of child molesters.
For the boy, so he didn't have to go through a painful trial.
I've learned to go on, and now I just have to reinstill trust in my grandson. He just needs to learn to trust again.
Frolander.
Case 4. Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer, one of the most notorious serial killers in history, committed a series of brutal murders from 1978 to 1991. Dahmer murdered 17 young men and boys, carrying out horrific acts of rape, dismemberment, necrophilia, and cannibalism. His crimes, deeply disturbing in nature, shocked not only the public but the world, revealing a chilling obsession with control and possession over his victims.
I desensitized myself to it. I don't know, I went...
Dahmer's first murder took place at the age of 18 in 1978, when he picked up 19-year-old Stephen Hicks, offered him a drink, and then bludgeoned him with a dumbbell before dismembering the body. After this, Dahmer's killing spree paused for several years but resumed with increasing brutality in 1987. By this time, Dahmer's targets were mostly young men, often vulnerable individuals from marginalized groups, including men of color and LGBTQ+ individuals, whom he lured under the pretense of photography or sexual propositions. Once in his apartment, he drugged, strangled, and in some cases, performed necrophilic acts on his victims.
Jeffrey Dahmer's murderous orgy is over. Throughout the trial that found him sane, grief-stricken families of the 15 men and boys Dahmer killed and mutilated held their peace.
One of the most shocking incidents occurred in May 1991, when Dahmer lured 14-year-old Konarak Syntha to his apartment. After drugging and assaulting him, Dahmer briefly left the room. When he returned, he found the boy had escaped. Disoriented and naked, Konarak was found by 2 women, who called the police. However, Dahmer convinced the officers that Konarak was his 19-year-old boyfriend who had drunk too much. The officers, dismissing the women's concerns, returned Konarak to Dahmer, who killed him shortly after. This tragic incident exposed major failures in law enforcement, as it was later revealed that the police had failed to intervene despite Konarak's clear distress and the suspicious circumstances.
Then, sir, would you tell us your name and spell your last name for us?
Tracy Edwards, Edwards.
Mr. Edwards, you're going to ask you to speak up very loudly into the microphone. I would like to know in what state do you reside at the present time?
Louisiana.
And how old are you, sir?
32.
32? And you are single?
Yes.
Dahmer's killing spree ended on July 22, 1991, when Tracy Edwards, a man Dahmer had lured to his apartment, managed to escape despite being drugged and partially restrained. Edwards flagged down 2 police officers, and when they accompanied him back to the apartment to retrieve a key to the handcuffs Dahmer had used, they discovered photographs of dismembered bodies, severed heads, and remains of victims stored in freezers and a 57-gallon drum. The scene was grotesque and chilling. Dahmer was arrested immediately, and the details of his crimes began to unfold as he confessed.
Did you ever stop to think that this is someone's brother, nephew, uncle, cousin, grandson, or just someone's friend?
I hope you can deal with what you've done. I'm trying hard to. You almost destroyed me, but I refuse to let you destroy me. I will carry on.
Throughout his trial and confession, Dahmer showed no genuine remorse for the pain he had caused. His obsession with control and domination over his victims was clear in his statements, where he detailed how he planned to keep his victims' body parts as trophies. His calm and detached demeanor during these proceedings highlighted his total lack of empathy. Even when confronted by the emotional testimony of victims' families, Dahmer remained indifferent, offering no apologies or acknowledgement of the pain he had inflicted.
The oldest sister of Errol Lindsay, whatever your name is, Satan, I'm mad. This is how you act when you are out of control. I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again. Never, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I hate you, motherfucker. I hate you. This is out of control. Don't fuck with me, Jeffrey. I'll kill you. God damn it. Look at me, motherfucker. I can kill you.
What's your name, fam?
I can kill you.
One of the most iconic moments during the trial came when Rita Isbell, the sister of one of Dahmer's victims, confronted him in a raw, emotional outburst. She screamed at Dahmer, calling him Satan and demanding justice for her brother. This confrontation became a defining moment, illustrating the immense pain Dahmer had caused. Despite these intense moments, Dahmer remained stoic and unrepentant, solidifying his image as a man completely devoid of empathy for his victims.
Sharing your dreams, your heart and your mind.
Ultimately, Dahmer was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms in prison. His lack of remorse and the horrific nature of his crimes shocked the world, prompting discussions about mental health, justice, and the role of law enforcement in preventing such tragedies. Dahmer's case also highlighted significant gaps in how marginalized victims, particularly people of color and LGBTQ+ individuals, are treated by society and the legal system. On November 28, 1994, Dahmer was killed in prison by a fellow inmate, Christopher Scarver. Scarver later claimed he had killed Dahmer because of the nature of his crimes, and many believed that Dahmer's death in prison served as a form of poetic justice. However, his lack of remorse, even in death, continues to haunt those who were affected by his horrific actions. Dahmer's case is a haunting reminder of the depths of human depravity and the need for vigilance in protecting vulnerable individuals from predators.